Kids love candy, and since 1949, kids have loved Candyland. Funny thing about kids is they grow up, and in the time that it takes you to say crooked old peanut brittle house, Candyland's magic can transport you right back to your childhood. So if all this has you dreaming of home sweet home, then let's take a trip to Candyland on this edition of Where's the Fun From? It's hard to imagine a more pleasant game coming out of a more perilous situation. The first children to play Candyland were in a polio ward at a San Diego hospital in 1948. Eleanor Abbott, the game's inventor, was in the same hospital, suffering from the same dreadful disease as the kids. In 1948, the polio epidemic in the US was raging. Poliomyelitis is caused by a virus that attacks the nervous system. It's highly contagious because most people who contract it are asymptomatic and unknowingly spread it. But for a small percentage of people, polio can lead to severe muscle weakness and even permanent paralysis. Tragically, children under 5 years old were particularly vulnerable in the late 40s and early 50s, and were more likely to contract the virus than any other group of people. Even those with residual paralysis needed time to learn to walk again and adapt to braces, crutches, and wheelchairs. It's hard to imagine a more hellish place than a polio ward in the late 1940s. Enter Eleanor Abbott. Eleanor Abbott had polio, that's true, but she also had a superpower that made her uniquely qualified to be in that hospital. She was a former teacher, and she understood kids. And here she is. No, she's not. I have no picture of Eleanor Abbott to show you. People who look into the history of Candyland are frustrated that there's so little known about this amazing woman. But here's what we do know. She loved, empathized with, and advocated for children. It's no accident that Candyland took a long time to play within a fantastical world that kids did not want to leave. Although the game taught colors and counting and was clearly fun, to the kids who first played it in that hospital, it was a godsend, a diversion and an escape to a land that was colorful and sweet. The game proved to be so much fun that Eleanor was encouraged to take it to Springfield, Massachusetts, and the home of Milton Bradley. There she met Mel Taft, an inventor relations executive who just started there months before. Mel told me that he saw the game from Eleanor sketched out on butcher's paper. The executives played it and liked it and decided to make it a temporary fill-in game. Mel called up Eleanor to give her the good news and decided to go pay her a visit. Eleanor was just as sweet as could be. She was a school teacher who lived in a very modest home in San Diego, Mel said. She was a real sweetheart. I liked her immediately. Although the executives of Milton Bradley liked the game and liked Eleanor, they had no idea how big the game would become. It was supposed to be a temporary fill-in, but upon its release, it started to sell, and it never let up. And not just because it was interesting and exciting and 83 cents. From the start, Milton Bradley touted the game's ability to keep kids happy and occupied for long periods. That was music to the ears of parents, because social distancing was still very common in the 6 years after Candyland's release. Fearful parents kept kids inside as public swimming pools, bowling alleys, and movie theaters closed. Candyland was marketed as an indoor game. The board of Candyland was always a map laid at the feet of two happy travelers, a boy and a girl, who set out across the candy-laden countryside. The first Candyland game had rather rudimentary illustrations, and I posed the question in my book. Was Eleanor Abbott's artwork used in the very first Candyland games produced? It's a romantic notion, but a mystery. I posed that question because the boy in the illustration on this early 1949 board at left has an odd line running up his leg. The board on the right represents a later version where the line was removed. Could this have been a hint of a leg brace, subtly added by the artist or creator? If so, it would certainly go unnoticed to the casual player, but would speak volumes to the young polio victims for whom this game was initially created. The thing I like best about the Candyland kids is that they're holding hands. If it's true that Eleanor Abbott had something to do with this early artwork, I'd like to think it was her way of saying, let's stick together. Famously, Candyland required no reading. Cards with 1 or 2 colored squares told kids as young as 3 where to go on the rainbow path, with the goal of reaching home sweet home. But that was easier said than done. The dreaded molasses swamp or cherry pitfalls often stuck you in place seemingly forever. It could have been some suppressed guilt over my own sweet excesses, but I always saw the black dots that represented the cherry pitfalls as cavities when I was a kid. Play pieces were wooden pawns initially, but later became gingerbread men and have been so ever since. In 1984, Hasbro acquired Milton Bradley, and with it, Candyland. That same year, characters were introduced with names like Plumpy, Jolly, and Princess Lolly. Many characters have come and gone and changed. Today, Queen Frostine wears faux fur as opposed to the fishnets she sported in 2013. That seems like a good choice. Today, there's Nana in the Nut House. She's offering kids of Candyland sweet, decadent peanuts? Not peanut brittle, mind you. Peanuts. On a plate. Oh, what? On the bright side, as the years go by and new characters are introduced, every generation has a version of Candyland that they can call their own. Across 71 years, an estimated 75 million copies of Candyland have been sold. In 2005, the game was inducted into the National Toy Hall of Fame, and that same year, a feature film was released. Imagine how celebrated you would be if you created a piece of music that sold 75 million copies. That's 75 times platinum. And what about books? Candyland has sold more copies than The Cat in the Hat and The Tale of Peter Rabbit combined. More power to Dr. Seuss and Beatrix Potter, but where's the love for Eleanor Abbott? The sales of Candyland continued to grow, earning its creator her just desserts. I remember when it really started to take off, Mel Taft told me. Eleanor gave most of her royalties right back to the kids. She bought supplies and equipment for all the schools. That anecdote was reiterated by Richard L. Fry, the author of According to Hoyle, the definitive all rules book, making him somewhat of an expert on the topic of toys. He said in an article he wrote in the Milwaukee Journal in 1964 that Eleanor Abbott received bountiful royalties and has devoted much of this income to helping crippled children. Who is this woman? Eleanor Reynolds Abbott was born in Canada in 1910. In 1948, the same year she's in the polio ward, she's 38 years old, and she fills out a census form that year and lists her occupation as simply watch repair. Then, on a 1959 census form, she lists herself as toy game maker. I wonder what toys she made. I wonder what other games. Around this time, she starts to write letters to the editor of the San Diego Union newspaper. Some of those letters get published. In 1961, she wrote to the editor requesting help in building bomb shelters. She seemed to be worried about the kids.
I see empty lots in all sections of San Diego, covered with weeds. Most of all, I see large, spacious playgrounds around the schools. School playgrounds would make wonderful sites for fallout shelters. E.R. Abbott.
In 1963, she wrote another letter to the editor where she was advocating for kids in her neighborhood.
I'm a woman do-it-yourselfer. I'm always busy repairing something, making something, or painting something. As soon as school is out, I'm beset daily by youngsters, boys and girls begging to help me out with my work. So what do you do about these young people who are eager to work? The only thing I can think of is for an organization or group to start a trade school in the summer. Most of them complain to me that they haven't anything to do. Every boy should be given the chance to learn a trade. His future happiness may depend upon it. Eleanor Abbott.
By this time, Candyland was already a runaway hit, and Milton Bradley was on its 3rd edition of the game. It makes sense to me why the game giant wouldn't want to promote the polio origins of this bittersweet tale. But what about Eleanor Abbott? Did she tell her friends that she invented the game? It certainly appears as though she didn't tell any newspaper reporters, that's for sure. When Eleanor Abbott passed away in 1988, Her obituary only listed her name, the day she died, and the day and time of her graveside services. Her headstone's only epitaph? In loving memory. The way Eleanor Abbott acted in the middle of the polio pandemic as it was happening to her is the lesson we need right now. She was kind, creative, selfless, and generous. She saw a need and she filled it. She saw suffering and she tried to alleviate it. Her story teaches us to be more kind, creative, selfless, and generous, because that's what makes life sweet. We don't know what Eleanor Abbott looked like, but we know she was beautiful. Hey, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you know when a new video comes out. Speaking of, what plaything should I cover next on Where's the Fun From? Let me know in the comments below. Until next week, seize the play.